Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are going to start in just about 30 seconds. We're going to give folks a chance to log on. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are going to get started in just about 9 seconds. We're giving folks a chance to jump on and get their audio set. All right, we are going to get started. Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Long. I'm the Senior Educational Content Manager here at the Indiana Youth Institute, and we are so excited that you're joining us for today's webinar, DBT Principles and Strategies for Youth with High-Risk Behaviors. And we are so grateful to have the chance to connect as a community of Indiana youth workers who remain committed to meeting the needs of our children and youth. For those who are not familiar with IYI, our mission is to improve the lives of all Indiana children by strengthening and connecting the people, organizations, and communities that are focused on youth. Listed here, you could see our vision that drives the work that we do for Indiana youth. And before we begin, I'm going to share just a few pointers that will help you engage with today's webinar. For any technical support issues, use the chat feature to send a message, and I will assist you. Use this feature to converse with the group as well. We also encourage you to ask questions, so please use the Q&A feature for any you may have, and we will get to as many as possible. Feel free also to upvote the great questions to the top. So if you look at the bottom or the top of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little function that says Q&A, and that is what we use to ask questions of our speaker. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sapolsky. Just as a note, before we turn it over to her, later today, you will receive an email with the link to complete an evaluation of the webinar. That email will include the presentation slides as well. Please take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts about today's presentation. If you don't receive the evaluation email, check your junk, as sometimes it gets directed there. And then once you complete the evaluation, you will be redirected to your certificate of participation. So if you're looking for a certificate, in order to get that, you have to fill out the evaluation. Finally, today's webinar will be posted on our website. And so if you'd like to revisit a portion later or share the opportunity to listen with partners, that is the place to do it. And so with that, I'm going to give it to Dr. Spolsky.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh. And just confirm you all can see my screen with the slides.
Yep, it's there.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. I'm so excited to be here and to be able to talk with you all today about DBT principles and strategies for youth presenting with high-risk behaviors. I'll stop throughout to just make sure if there are any questions, but want to make sure I get through all the slides. So we'll save most of them to the end, but we'll just kind of do a gauge check how everyone's doing. And also want to know if anyone has already been using DBT strategies, know what they are. That just helps me understand where we are as a community with understanding these principles. And also if people have already been using some of them, I always love to hear from everyone on what works best in different settings and with different youth. So want to make this a engaging and collaborative presentation as well. So working with youth is a wonderful experience. I have spent my entire career working with youth and young adults, and they bring so much joy. They have so much energy and perspective and insights, and it is a great opportunity and privilege to be able to work with youth in so many different settings. And just like us, where youth are not always feeling their best, that sometimes they're feeling great, other times it's kind of just moi, one word answers, not that they're in a terrible mood or anything, but just kind of not really feeling it. And then sometimes they really are not doing well, right? That they're dysregulated, and this can also result in physical aggression or altercations and conflict. we can put words to this. This could be them being angry or overwhelmed or frustrated, as well as anxious or nervous at times, as well as feelings of depression, or just feeling down. And that is part of development and also just part of living, that we don't always feel our best. However, youth are experiencing these sometimes at pretty significant levels. And as adults working with youth, that it can be a lot at times, particularly if there's multiple youth that are experiencing emotional difficulties, as well as if they are also engaging in high risk behaviors that we'll talk about. But this data, I want to present it that this is something that is not unique to Indiana or unique to the youth that you work with, that this is something that is a national global concern. And so this is based, just back up a little bit, on data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that is conducted annually across the country, as well as here in Indiana. And so there's national data as well as Indiana specific data. So I'm going to present on both of those. And they go over a lot of different health behaviors and issues, including concerns about their mental health. And so there's a question in the survey, and this is for high school youth in grades 9 through 12, on if they've experienced poor mental health during the past 30 days. And this is including stress, anxiety, depression. And you'll see nationally that about 30% of youth in high school in 2023 that completed the survey reported that they had poor mental health. In Indiana, again, same questions, it was slightly higher, about a third, or 33% of youth reported that they felt that their mental health was poor. It looks like my computer is freezing up.
It'll come back. Just give it a second.
Okay, here.
Dr. Zapolsky, would you like me to go to your slide on my screen?
Yeah, maybe that'll work. I was thinking like
Okay.
maybe it's not going to look, I'll close it out so see, but yes, we can keep going with the PDF or the version that I sent you.
Let me just put it up here. Okay.
Stop share for a second. Sorry about
Share.
that.
No problem. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. And then you wanted the next slide, I believe.
Yes, thank you. Oh, looks like I got mine back up, but if you want to continue with
Oh,
yours.
you can put yours back. You can put yours back
Okay,
up, and if it goes out again, I'll go
cool.
back to mine.
All right, let's go with the flow. Here we go. Let's try this one more time. Okay, let's see if it's gonna. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so back up. So just saying that again, mental health is a concern, and that a lot of high school youth across the country, as well as in Indiana, report about a third of them, right, report having poor mental health, as well as coping, that they don't feel that they do a great job of being able to cope with their mental health. So around 7 out of 10 youth feel they have pressure to keep feelings to themselves, that they feel better, they pretend to feel better, to not worry anyone, and that they deal with their feelings on their own. About a half of them said they've tried to ignore their feelings or spend time alone as their way of coping with their mental health. And so where does that leave them? As a clinician, know that by not addressing mental health does not make it go away, and generally makes it worse. I usually equate it to like physical conditions, that if you got a cut and it was kind of deep and it had some dirt in it, and said, you know what, I'm just gonna ignore it, pretend like it's not there, not do anything about it, that over time, is it going to get better? Most likely, no, it's going to get worse. It might get infected. And so important to address our physical health as well as our mental health. And so these feelings can result in depression, suicidal thoughts. It could relate to engagement in risky behaviors, including substance use, sometimes as a mean to cope with the emotions they're experiencing, as well as youth and adults. It can engage in self-harm as a way of trying to manage these intense emotions and feelings and not knowing really what to do with them. And so data from that youth risk behavior survey also shows that prevalence of substance use. So about a quarter of high school youth have drank alcohol in the past 30 days. And again, not saying this is directly because of their mental health and knowing that they are engaging in these behaviors, as well as cannabis use. About a third in 2023 reported cannabis use. And then kind of going back to that mental health of the suicide is something that I do a lot of work in that area. And that is something, again, that is related to the stress and hopelessness and the mental health that youth here in Indiana and nationally are experiencing. So going back to that youth risk behavior survey in 2023, about half of the youth that were surveyed, and this is across the state, reported that they felt sad or hopeless almost every day for at least 2 weeks or greater in a row, where they were not doing activities that they usually would do. So it's not only that they're experiencing these emotions, these feelings, but it's lasting for almost a month, right? At least half of a month or more. And they're stopping doing things that they usually do, going to class, interacting with friends, family, as a result of their feelings and their emotions. We also find that a quarter of youth, and this is Indiana youth, reported seriously considering attempting suicide and or having a plan about how they would attempt suicide. And we also have about 1 in 5 youth in Indiana in 2023 that completed the survey. Again, this was national across the state, that they actually attempted suicide in that previous year. And that's a lot. That's heavy for a parent, for any adult that works with youth, and can leave, even as a clinician, feeling overwhelmed and anxious and concerned and sometimes hopeless of what do I do with these situations, the experiences that the youth are having. And you know, being a adolescent and youth today is very different than when I was. And growing up with social media and just the pace of which information is being gathered and misinformation and trying to decipher through all of that, it's a lot. It's a lot. And so as even adults, right, it could be overwhelming and confusing as to what to do to help them. And so the learning objectives for this presentation are to hopefully give some tools and some help with that, with the understanding the youth, providing them strategies, as well as for ourselves as adults that are working with youth on how to be able to help ourselves as well as them with their emotions, and the risk of them engaging in high risk behaviors, sometimes as a result of those, but just in general, as well, reducing the likelihood of them engaging in those behaviors. And so we're going to do this through understanding strategies available through dialectical behavioral therapy for adolescents. And so DBT is a wonderful intervention and tool that I use for almost all clients that I work with, from the young, 9 years old, all the way up to adults that are, in their 60s, 70s. My clients span the whole kind of developmental lifespan. And so all these strategies are helpful for everyone, which is one thing I love about them, that they are adaptable to the environment, but they also are very effective and applicable to many situations and many people. And so we'll start off talking about two of the kind of underlying core principles of DBT, which are dialectics and validation. And then we're going to go through a specific set of strategies called stress tolerance strategies that are available through DBT. From there, we're going to understand how to approach and help youth that may be suicidal. So focusing specifically on that high-risk behavior. And lastly, just want to leave you with some additional resources and tools and trainings that you can use to supplement the information that we're going to talk about today. But as we get started with DBT, I just want to see if you are familiar with DBT. If you could put in the chat, yes, I've heard about it. If you have used it, if you don't know anything about DBT, haven't heard about it, just kind of gauge how everyone is with knowing about it. Or thumbs up, yeah, whichever. Okay, heard a little bit. All right, so several people have heard about it. I assume some of them have used it in your settings. Some trainings are also wonderful of youth that you know that have gone through the program. Okay. Great, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, so we'll go over. So it sounds like there's a spectrum of, understanding or familiarity with DBT. So just to give a really quick kind of background into what DBT is an evidence-based intervention that combines both cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness into this intervention program that is used really across the lifespan. And it started off for adults that had suicidal behaviors as well as diagnosis with borderline personality disorder, but found that these strategies are just helpful for so many people for so many different conditions and challenges. And so from that, there was iterations of DBT for adolescents. And so there is actually started with for adolescents with suicidal behaviors, and then realized again, all youth could really benefit from it. And so there was the DBT skills manual that can be just implemented within schools, within community centers, or even individually as you work with youth. And they also more recently came out with the DBT skills for schools. Now it is a program that can span the entire year, which I have not run into a school that has been able to implement to fidelity all of these strategies and lessons that are in the DBT called STEPS manual. But it also is a great resource for individuals if you're looking at ways of kind of cutting down DBT into smaller chunks and being able to use some of those strategies. So I kind of mentioned that there's different parts of DBT as a collective, or as if you're going to do it to standard to fidelity. What DBT involves is individual therapy that you meet with a therapist and a youth in this case, one-on-one. There's a group component where there's a group skills development, which is that skills manual, the one in the front that goes through that the youth would attend. And there's also a family component part of the DBT program. And the sessions can range, but usually between 16 to 24, 26 sessions of the group that you would do. And then usually there's a second round just to be able to review those skills. So it can be a whole year of 2 hours of group therapy, individual therapy, as well as family therapy. Family sessions are included within the group therapy. So that is a lot, but it can be very, very helpful for you, particularly that have a lot of challenges, particularly if there's suicide or self-injury or high-risk behaviors. And the skills that are provided and strategy within DBT are so applicable. It can be used for across contexts and across individuals, even if there is not a diagnosis, a clinical diagnosis. Because what the skills teach is how youth, as well as adults, can tolerate and manage strong emotions instead of hiding, running away, pushing them aside. That there's times when we can manage through those emotions, and there's also strategies and skills that we can use to cope with those emotions rather than ignoring them. And so I just love that of the ability of being able to work through those things rather than push them away. So one of the key principles of DBT that I want to talk about is dialectics. Dialectics is the idea or balance or synthesis of opposites. And so this idea of growth mindset, I think will fall into this category, but really the idea of the power of the and, instead of just being black and white, like I'm either bad or I'm good. I either can do it or I can't. I might not be able to do it now, and I can work towards doing it in the future. And so the power of the and allows for I can be sad and frustrated about this experience, and I can do things to help manage through. And so it's not invalidating, which we talk about the experience, and still providing resources, tools to move forward. And so I try to work on that with youth and adults, the idea of being able to sit with two opposites, and it doesn't have to be one or the other, and how those both can be true, and that's okay. And so that allows for a person to feel an emotion. Like, it's okay to be angry. I'm not invalidating that. Like, that is a true experience and can very much fit the situation. And there might be something else, and we can't hit people. And we have to still be in school today because there's something that has to happen, right? So being able to sit with that and recognize and acknowledge, usually in this case, like emotions and tools or resources of what you were going to do to help with coping with that situation. And so again, that dialectic is something that's a core part of DBT, of that mindfulness of being able to recognize and action of doing things at the same time. Now, validation, I talked about this a little bit when I was talking about the opposites or two sides. And validation is really important. Validation is communication, that you understand a person's thinking, thoughts, feelings, and actions, that you get it. You don't have to agree with it, which is really important, but that you understand where someone is coming from. Right? Invalidation, on the other hand, communicates that what a person's thinking, feeling, believing doesn't make sense, is inappropriate, they shouldn't be feeling that way, they shouldn't be doing it. And so you're just invalidating that experience, that is something that needs to change, and there's no reason that they should or should be having that experience or that feeling. So that was stupid, that's an overreaction, you're manipulating the situation, you're attention seeking, right? That invalidates the person's experience, what they feel in that moment. And so that invalidation can lead to alienation and a lot of dysregulation. When I go back and I'm even my interactions with my children or with their friends, or when I'm doing therapy, and I'm like, well, when what that was said, I completely see how someone would become even more angry and more frustrated based on that, because that's how they're interpreting that you don't get it, that you don't understand them, which is a frustrating experience for anyone to feel like I'm trying to explain something to someone and they just don't get it. They don't understand where I'm coming from. And so that can result in increased conflict, hurt feelings, and shutting down. And that escalating, we're trying to reduce these high risk behaviors and helping youth to manage their emotions. And so invalidation can really disrupt that process. So what are some examples of invalidation? Just be happy. Like, why are you sad? Just be happy. It's not a big deal. Honestly, it could be worse. Just wait till you get older. You think you have problems now? Wait till you have to pay bills and have to, get a job. You just want attention. You're just attention seeking. Don't cry. There's nothing to cry about. Or if there is, like, just don't cry. Like, don't do that. That's not okay. You're just a kid. What do you have to be stressed out about? You're being lazy. You're just being selfish. You're being manipulative. Yes, but this is the other side. And that's the opposite of what I just said before, the yes and. The yes and allows for acceptance of a situation and growth. A yes, but disqualifies what you said before. So you're feeling that way, but whatever you're going to say says, like, yeah, you did that. And it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much as what else I'm going to say. So again, small changes, but so important of how that is perceived and interpreted. And invalidation can happen with the best of intentions. So I'm a mom, I have 3 kids. My children do catch me at times saying, like, Mom, that was invalidating. And again, completely unintentional at times, right? If my child says, I'm a terrible person, I'm ugly, no one likes me. Oh my gosh, honey, no. Like, what are you talking about? You're amazing. You're lovely. You're a wonderful person. You have so much to look forward to. Not trying to invalidate, but what I just told them and what this scenario is saying is, like, no, what you're feeling isn't true, is inaccurate, and you're just wrong about how you feel. Right? And so how could we flip that? Put in the chat, how could you flip this? So instead of, if someone says, that youth comes to you and says, I'm a terrible person, and the invalidating response is, what are you talking about? You're great. What would be a validating response to that statement? What do we think? Why do they feel that way? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Why are you feeling that way? Not invalidating, asking questions, trying to understand. why that happened, why they felt that way. Explain that to me. Absolutely. Yeah. So we don't have to disqualify. We can come from a place of wanting to understand instead of shutting it down, saying, oh, what happened? Yeah, what happened to make you feel that way? Like, explain to me. Yeah, I am sorry. I'm sorry that you feel that way. And that's fine. You need to express, right, your feelings about it. Those aren't easy feelings to have. Absolutely. Right. And to get them to talk more, just tell me about it. Like what happened? What's going on? So on one end, right, if you just wanted to shut down, like that's, and I might really not believe, I really, really truly believe that they are not a terrible person and not helpful in the situation. That could shut down the conversation. They don't understand. They're not trying to understand where I'm coming from versus, again, opening that communication to have those discussions. So how to validate? You guys are already on the right track. So one thing I would say, remove distractions. So if possible, even again, if we're thinking about at school, after school, community center, or even at home with family. If I want to talk to someone and they're saying this, phone away, TV off as much as possible, other kids, I just need a moment to talk to the person or the youth in front of me. All right, so remove those distractions. That's showing again that you care, you want to hear and understand where they're coming from. Active listening, those questions, not interrupting. So it sounds like you can reiterate back just to make sure you're understanding like what happened. Sometimes like, I just want to make sure I understand the timeline of events. So I'm like there with them with what happened and where they are and what they were thinking. Asking for clarification. Right? And watching your nonverbals, I for myself say, Tamika, fix your face. Like you sometimes just got to make sure my nonverbal expressions, take those deep breaths, the sighing, eye rolling, particularly if you're like, I don't really get it, right? It might be something that you're trying to understand, but on the surface, just really don't see the issue or what they're really, why this is really upsetting to them. You understand they're upset, but try and understand that. And so they might say something like, oh, wow, that for you doesn't seem like something that would be upsetting, but for them, it really is. And so being able to step back. So I just give examples. I have a teenager, she's 15, so there's things that come upsetting. It might be missing a mascara or something, and it's very, very overwhelming. And so I have to step back and try to, make sure I'm in check with myself to be there to try to really understand and validate and be there for her in her moment of distress because it's distressing to her in that moment. So how do you validate? What was things you all were saying, going with the feelings? So I see that you're disappointed. I can see that it's really hurtful. What happened? So reflecting that back again is showing that you understand you're trying to be there and where they are, and you understand and can see what they're experiencing and saying like that's true. This is your truth, and that's all they need for when we're thinking about validation. Showing tolerance, look at how the feelings, thoughts, and actions of the youth make sense given their history or current situation. So this is where it can get hard. Like I don't want to validate or feel like I'm approving of someone using drugs or cutting class or cussing someone out or yelling, whatever the behavior is. And you don't have to validate that. And you can see, I understand why they might do that. I can understand. It makes sense that you're feeling so sad and frustrated that you thought that alcohol would help in that situation. I understand that you were so angry and felt like you couldn't get your point across that throwing the chair seemed like a good solution or was just a reaction that you had in the moment because of the emotions you were feeling. I'm not validating, but I'm not approving of what they did, but I understand, sorry, and I understand why they feel that way. And that's what's important when we think about validation. Ask what they need. So this part, ask validation, instead of coming in, because sometimes as an adult too, I want to problem solve, I want to figure this out, I want to get it solved. I don't want them to be upset. I don't want them to be angry or hurt. And so going in and being like, I can fix this, but that might not be what they need. And so with validation with that hearing of asking, what do you need right now? And sometimes maybe they don't know what they need. Like, do you want me just to be here with you and just like support? Or would you like me to help with a solution? Like, what would be most helpful for you right now? So sometimes you can give options if they seem really overwhelmed. And sometimes they can tell you, I just need a hug, or I just need someone to sit with me right now. And that's important because it's not always the right time and place to go into problem solving mode or to try to fix something. And I want to say sometimes youth as well as adults, we don't know what we need. And so I just want to give this tip too, that if you don't know, or if the person, youth doesn't know what they need, a good kind of like gauge or go-to is if someone's sad, they generally need comfort. They want to feel loved. They want to feel connected. If they're afraid, they want to feel safe and secure. So how can I help them feel safe if they're afraid? Is it of a dog? Is it of another person? Is it a bully? What are they afraid of? And can I help with that if they don't know what they need, right? If they're angry and they're frustrated, boundaries and patience. So when someone is dysregulated and they're upset, that is not the time to try to close them in, to hold them down, to like isolate them and push them into a corner. That's going to make intensify the feelings and yes, I know the balance of safety and recognizing it for me, I was like, it makes sense that I understand safety and trying to push someone in a corner when they're angry, the natural reaction to that is to escape, to free up space. And so from a clinician perspective, safety, yes, and can I still keep distance? Can I still get 3 or 4? Can I make sure that the area that they are in I'm still backing to give them their space and securing the scenario, the situation? Can we move to another room that they can still sit there and do what they need to and be able to not be in danger or conflict with other people? I'll look in the chat to see if there's anything. Yeah, so you can pin the Q&A. So yeah, so those are just, again, some tips there, the idea of validation as well as the dialectics. And those, again, are 2 core parts of DBT, but you can see when, if we get closed in into the but or not allowing for the flexibility, that can make someone more dysregulated because they're just black or white. And like, yes, can we think of some gray? Like, yes, this is super stressful and I can see why you're frustrated. And I wonder what might be other perspectives or other things or other possibilities that could help, right? If we're in that space instead of being like, it's either this or that. The and allows openness. It kind of frees people up from feeling so trapped in a box. And then the invalidation also opens that up. So being able to express and let people, in youth particular, say how they feel and be able to be at a space where they feel safe and that someone and being heard is just such a huge thing, that they feel that someone understands and hears them, that's giving them that space, is a very, very just powerful tool to have and a really important core part of relationships. So that's the first 2 parts of the DBT. So I'll stop there to make sure, see if there's any questions about those before moving on to some strategies with the distress tolerance. Okay,
Nothing as of right now.
okay,
Just a reminder to folks to use that Q&A function. As we get to the end, we'll have a longer dedicated time to questions.
okay, awesome. And yes, all slides will be shared. So please, and you can always reach out to me if you have other further questions about any of this later as well. So one thing I just want to say with youth, when we think about dysregulation and coping, and sometimes I've been talking with my friends or parents, like they just need to like figure it out. They just need to get it together. Yeah, that would be awesome if they could just get it together. And from a DBT perspective, they're trying the best they can. Like they're not trying to be complete. Like no one enjoys being that dysregulated and upset, particularly if it's like all the time, and they feel like things are just kind of in balance and in a state of chaos. And from a developmental perspective, it makes sense, this validation, because the prefrontal cortex, this front part of the brain where you can see the box, is where the executive functioning happens, where you say, get it together, figure it out. That's where the figuring out happens. But as you can see, red means it's not mature. There's basically not there. So telling a 5-year-old to figure it out and get their emotions together, unless they have some very enhanced brain development in this area, that's not developmentally appropriate. And we'll see that it's not actually mature, that front part, the executive functioning, until 20. So even a teenager, which has a whole other set of like hormones and things that are happening that can increase likelihood of dysregulation, it's still red to yellow in the prefrontal cortex or getting green. So we're like maybe halfway there. So that's something just from an adult perspective or the taking the high, level view of it. It's asking a lot of a youth to be able to regulate and do all the things, particularly in high stress situations. Also, when people are dysregulated, they are generally not using at all the frontal brain. They're using the hindbrain. That is in the midbrain, where the emotions is very much like survival and intense emotions. Not much executive functioning and thinking is happening at that point. So I know some people know like the top brain, bottom brain. If you have heard about that analogy, this is the idea. So when people are dysregulated, that front brain or the upstairs is gone. The lid is flipped. And so what they're left with is the lower brain. And that's not where we're rationally thinking, where there's not a lot of executive functioning, executive reasoning going on, of thinking through pros and cons and solutions. That's not happening here. So to ask someone to be rational and logical is not going to happen when someone's dysregulated. And asking them that is then invalidating and can cause more dysregulation. So making demands, just stop it, calm down, or yelling at them. Again, if someone's upset, they need space and patience, not more stress and more emotions, right? That's going to give the opposite effect. So if we're wanting to de-escalate a situation when a youth is become dysregulated, validating, lowering your voice, all those things we just talked about with the validation of communication, your facial expressions, the personal space. 3 feet is a good just kind of metric to use a gauge so people don't feel trapped, particularly again if they're high emotions and feeling angry. Again, different if they're feeling sad or unsafe, getting to their level. So doing this a lot, particularly with younger youth, that if we're talking to them, coming down instead of standing over them, again, particularly if they're dysregulated and someone's standing over them, that's threatening. So can I come down to their level, talk to them, ask how they're doing, what's going on, how are they feeling? Why are they feeling that way? Again, as much as they can, and they might not be able to. And so then we're going to talk about strategies to be able to use to help them bring down the temperature and the intensity of their emotions. And so also decrease stimulation. So I always know when I go to hospitals or schools, they a lot have the neon or the bright lights, and that actually is stimulating. It doesn't bring down the temperature. So having a calming place, being able to bring down or having cool lights, or being able to turn the lights down, having lower like kind of movement and uh, sound again can also be helpful just to bring down the emotional temperature. Now, the skills to use, particularly again, if we're at that top level, kind of like the lid is blown, the volcano has exploded, the kettle is whistling. There are specific skills we use at that point, as well as other skills within this distress tolerance part of DBT that is so helpful with being able to manage and regulate emotions. Just to back up a little bit, so DBT, like I said, there's a lot of components to it. And even within the skills component, there are 4 core skills. And there's actually a 5th one if we include one that's for adults and communication. But not communication, sorry. It's called Walking the Middle Path about relationships. And so it's kind of an offshoot of the yellow, the interpersonal effectiveness, but gets more into that validation and communication between particularly like caregivers, parents, and youth, but also adults to youth. But the other 2 boxes are mindfulness, emotion regulation, and distress tolerance. Distress tolerance is the one we're going to focus on today. And what that really is about is being able to manage a crisis or intense emotions without making the situation worse. And I think that's important to be able to understand about distress tolerance. Is not about making people feel better or feeling good. The part of distress tolerance is there's a crisis, and what you want to do is cuss someone out and throw and cut and drink. What we want you to do is not do those things. You might not necessarily feel better, and you didn't do those things that made the situation worse. And so the distress tolerance is going to help get through the crisis without doing things that can make things worse. And then we can tap on the emotion regulation strategies later. And those are about feeling good, increasing positive emotions, and kind of balancing day-to-day life. But distress tolerance is that you're dysregulated, you're having intense emotions, there's a high likelihood of crisis and engaging in high risk behaviors, and we gotta help manage the situation and the emotions so we don't do those things, that the youth doesn't do those things. And so these are the set of skills for distress tolerance, making it through a crisis. This is a kind of cheat sheet that I put together, and it will be given to you all in the PDF and the document that Josh will give you all after this session. But you'll see there's a lot of skills, and we're not going to go through all of them, but we're going to hit on a few of them that I hope will be helpful for you all as you think about being able to work with youth personally at home or in your workplace. So the first set is TIP on this top left corner. TIP skills are when you're at your youth is at a 10. This is again, this is hide, low braid, the lid is popped. There's no executive like reasoning. It is very much just survival and expressing and feeling those emotions. And we need to get the temperature way down from 100. We're just trying to get it hopefully to like an 80 or 70. We're not going to get it down to a 20 with these, but we're going to kind of do things to bring it down. It brings it down quickly, but needs to be followed up with additional strategies. So these are temperature, intense exercise, pace breathing, and paired muscle relaxation. Temperature is like I remember when I was younger, like splashing water in your face. They have a thing called the dive reflex, where if you have cold ice water, and you hold your breath and you put it in the water, it is going to, your system just starts to calm down. Now you want to make sure no youth has or even adult has any kind of heart problems, but that is going to bring the temperature down. I say if you're home and you can do this and you feel like, you're really upset, take a really cold shower, or people that do the cold plunges or a cold bath. Not something I would normally do. Don't find that to be pleasant or relaxing. That's not what the point of this is, right? It's supposed to bring the temperature down. So if I'm so heated and frustrated and angry, and I thought of doing things that are going to make things worse, and I take a really cold shower, what I'm not thinking about is doing those things. I'm trying not to shiver and like be so cold. I'm trying to like figure out how to warm my body. And that's the point. We're trying to distract and get the body to be able to calm down. Same thing with intense exercise. If you're doing something that's going to get the heart rate up, you're not thinking about whatever it is, because it's so intense. That's what you have to focus on. So I've talked to in some uh, speaking engagements for this, people that like worked in schools or community said they did like push-ups with youth, or went out for a run, or weight training, or just doing something again that takes attention. Like you go swimming, you have to focus on what you're doing. You have to stay moving in the water, right? So things that are going to keep the body moving, get the heart pumping, but also it's a distraction. So those are two things, again, just to bring it down quickly. Pace breathing also is a really good one to do. It naturally calms the body down. Now, we'll say that some people, and sometimes you feel like, I can breathe, like, don't tell me to breathe. That's what I'm doing. And that can be frustrating and sometimes feel invalidating. And so for this, I say, okay, you have a pattern. I want you to follow the pattern. And there's many different patterns that you can have. And so this is an example of, you do star breathing, square breathing, spiral breathing. A lot of youth I work with like the pace breathing, the square breathing. But you can also not have a pattern if you want to, and just say, hey, I just want you to breathe. And one tip I will say for pace breathing is that when you inhale, naturally, your body is activated. When you exhale, your body naturally calms down. So when people have panic attacks, it's very forceful inhales. What's that doing? Activating the body. It's not calming it down. It's making the situation, your body more riled up. And so if we inhale, and then we have a longer exhale. The exhale is calming the body down. And so by doing that, so people breathing, I'm like, just make your exhale longer, whatever feels comfortable than your inhale. And if you need music or something to focus on, then there's a way of doing that again can distract the mind and focus on the breathing that's going to calm it down. So I want us just to do 3 to 4 slow breaths. I'm going to turn on some music. And again, inhale at your own pace and just make sure your exhale is longer than your inhale. And let's see how that feels. Here we go. So again, I want you to inhale, maybe hold at the top for a second, and then exhale. Whatever feels comfortable. And inhale, and exhale. One more time, inhale, so that's it, right? You could have small breaks during uh, during a session or during a meeting or activity, right? It's the idea like, let's just take a pause and just take some breaths. Practicing it and doing these different skills just throughout the day or throughout the time that you have with youth can be really important just to reinforce it and show that you can do this naturally in any kind of situation. And particularly when it's a distressing situation of having those accessible to you or things that you've already practiced so your body is more like apt and ready to go into doing the relaxation or the distress tolerance activity. One last thing here is the progressive muscle relaxation, this idea of just tensing and releasing your muscles when you are activated or stressed out, then you tend to be more tight. And so this is, again, a way of getting the body to relax. And when your body's relaxed, your mind also becomes more relaxed. So again, these are trying to get us out the 10, bring us down to like an 8 or up from 100 to around 80 by using the tip skills. So once we've gotten down outside of the 80, then there's a whole bunch of other skills that can also be really helpful. I always say the tip is not to be done by itself. You almost always are going to need to do some other distress tolerance skills to get it down a little bit lower and manage through that crisis. So the next set I'm just going to talk through are the self-soothe, the six senses. I really like these because we have our senses with us. Not always all of the senses, but we have some of them. And so they're already accessible to you wherever you are. So what things could you look at that are pleasant? Anything that you could touch, sounds that you like, things that you smell that are uplifting or comforting for you, things that you like to taste that are soothing. So again, we're trying to self-soothe. Again, bringing the temperature down a little bit more by doing things that we enjoy is not going to make us feel like amazing, and that's not the goal, right? But being able to focus on things that soothe the body and also bring that temperature down, the intensity of the emotions is important. So I try to tell people to make their like self-soothe kit when they're calm. So this would be a great activity to do at home or with any kind of setting that you're working with youth and say, okay, what are things they like to smell? Can we get lotions or can we get different scratch off or markers if they like also coloring that smell like strawberries if they really like strawberries. We're also incorporating more than one sense, which is really a great way of intensifying the positive aspects of the self-soothe activity. Touch, what are things they like, or having different things around that they can touch. One thing that I do, actually I have it right here, is I have essential oils. I know at school some of them can't have that, but I have bags that have rice in it. And then I have essential oils or scents that are from like Carnival or from they're on Amazon that you can get them for different like slime, and they have like banana and cotton candy and bubble gum and candy corn, caramel, like all these just different smells that kids and adults like. And so we could put them in bags and so they can smell those or have different items that have lava beads on them that are porous and it can hold essential oils. So having those around for kids to use or make it a game. Say, can you figure out what taste of the Jolly Rancher this is, or taste or smell of the essential oil? And so again, how can you make it fun, but again, something that is going to soothe them, things that they enjoy doing. You can also do it by activities. Of the sixth sense here is movement. So how can you incorporate movement in a way that's going to, again, be calming, be able to bring down that intensity a little bit for the youth. Another way of doing your senses is through grounding. So this is also a great way because it incorporates different senses and in a way that's very strategic and structured. So tell me 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing that you taste. So this happened naturally. Actually, I was at a, a meeting for my daughter, an event that she was at, and one of the youth that was on her team was very distressed. And so myself and another friend that was there that was also a psychologist, we know grounding. And so she was very, very dysregulated, distressed. And we said, oh, okay, like what are 5 things you see around you? Like what are things you like? And just went and started doing it. And by the end, we got to 2 and 1. She was calmer where we could start talking through like what was happening and why she was upset. But if I just came in like, what's going on? What are you feeling? She would not have been able to. But by going through 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it grounded her. She was able to like, come back to like where we were, find things around that she enjoyed or she could be able to label. and then was able to give enough time to bring down that temperature a little bit to be able to talk through and think about next steps and what she needed. So one thing I'm giving you all that can be a tool for this is a bookmark that has the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I made this on Canva. You can actually go on Canva and see other examples, but I did change the colors and format it in a way. So it's a bookmark, a 2x6. And so you can cut that out. You can have that or make copies of it. Again, as a way of being able to share that or have that as a tool that can be used with the youth you work with. I keep it in the planner or in my book, so I always also have access to it. You can also put stickers on it or sensory stickers on the back if you want to have texture as well already on the bookmark. So again, it's just a way of being able to use these skills practically. The last one I want to hit right here for us for today is some of the accept skills. And I'm getting close to time. So I'm going to just go actually through 3 of these. Accept skills are, again, another set of skills to help for distracting, to help, again, bring down the temperature to manage through a stressor. So one of the accept skills is activities. It crosses over what some of the other things we already talked about, but this idea of being able to distract yourself from the emotions or a situation to be able, again, give yourself some distance or give the youth some distance from that situation that will help with being able to bring down the intensity of the emotion. So I say anything they feel comfortable doing, coloring, doodling, listening to music, doing a puzzle. And this is a list of 100 plus activities. I have another sheet that has about 300. So I say go through and pick something. And usually they can find something to do. And the idea here is try 2 or 3 of them and come back and see how you feel. And again, usually by doing that, they're going to have a lower intensity of the emotion. They might not feel great, but they're not in crisis mode. You can also do contributing, help someone else out. Can we go, if they're older, help a younger class or volunteer, be able to be a helper for whatever you're doing within your organization. Gives them a sense of self-respect and shifts their attention from themselves to someone else. So that's also a great way. Or making a card at home, helping with a sibling or helping, the parent or guardian do something that they could really use their help with. And then the last one here are 2 are going to talk about are distracting by changing your thoughts. So doing something that occupies your thinking, occupies the youth's thinking. This is what the grounding did as well, because they had to identify and label what was going on around them. So this could be singing a song in their head, it could be doing a puzzle, counting the tiles on the ceiling, naming the 50 states in their head, counting backwards. Those are all occupying thoughts. And you can make this a game. So I've done this where I have this alphabet printed out on a card. And so say, okay, I want to pick a topic, food. And I want you to go through the alphabet and like label something that fits in that category. So apple, banana, corn, donut, eggplant, right? And by the time you get to Z, again, it's given them space and time from the situation, and the intensity generally, again, like I said, has come down. Another way of doing this with thoughts is rainbow game. So you're in a room, you could again do this as like a brain break. And say, okay, I want to go around the rainbow and label something that's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and have to keep going around, maybe do at least 3 rounds of it, and they cannot repeat the same thing. So you can't just say markers and do each color of the markers that's on a table. Markers is one category and that's done. So you can't say marker again. So again, it makes them then start being mindful and really have to slow down and look and observe what's around them, which again takes them out of their head of whatever was happening and into that activity, which generally is also fun. And the last thing I'll say here for the distracting with accepts is sensations. So before I talked about sensations as self-soothing and calming and kind of bringing on the temperature, you can also think about it as intense sensations that distract you. So something really sour or something very cold, that's the tip skill too, that temperature. It's not calming. It's not hot and like warm, which would be on one of the self-soothe, but very cold, very sour, very spicy. That and can help distract from an intense emotion. So what I say for this, having some warheads or Takis, well, those are spicy for me. I don't know if they're actually, I would say some kids is spicy for. But again, the idea that that's an intense sensation, and so separate, and it might also taste good to some of them, but separates them from that situation that, or the thought that's occupying their mind that is distressing. It might be also having like cold pouches that you could have and put on your face and keep those in the freezer, or in some place cold at your organization or in your home. Again, that idea of distracting by habit sensation. And all this idea is bringing down the temperature so that you can go to that executive reasoning and you've been able to calm down to think through logically and what are your options and what problem solving can you do once again youth have been able to bring down that emotional intensity. So I know we're almost out of time, but wanted to make sure I hit that, which is the main part of the information or the DBT skills. And I'm quickly going to go over some of the uh, suicidal strategies, and I should be able to get done in like two minutes. So I'll have a few moments for
You're good.
questions.
You're good.
Okay. And then also I'll give you some resources that are available through Riley, where I work, as well as nationally. So just quickly for those that are not aware, as well as mental health is, in general issue, we know that suicide and suicidal ideation is also a very big concern among youth, that it is the second or third leading cause of death for youth in the United States. And we also know that there are differences in the kind of increase in suicidal thoughts as well as behaviors based on different demographics. So as you'll see here from 2012 to 2022, there's a 128% increase in suicide, deaths by suicide among Black youth in the United States. There was an increase you'll see for all groups based on race, but there was the largest increase over that 10-year period. And so if we're thinking about suicide and you think that there might be a youth that is having thoughts or a plan for suicide, the main thing to do is ask. And you can ask in different ways. You can be less direct with asking. Have you been feeling unhappy lately? I've noticed changes. It seems like you're down. Are you thinking about ending your life? Are you thinking about anything you wish you wouldn't wake up? So there are different ways of asking, but if you think that is what's going on, it's really important to ask them, because if they say yes, that's an incredibly important thing to know. If they say no, then okay, but they know that you are concerned and want to make sure that they're okay. Some people, there's a myth that if I ask them, then that's putting in their head. And that research, that is not the truth of what's happening. If someone has thoughts of suicide, it wasn't because someone just out of the blue said it to them. It's something that they have been thinking about generally for a while. And, talk about suicide now, we say that then make everyone want to think about a plan for suicide for themselves. And that is, again, that is not what the research and the data show for it. And so, but by asking, that opens the door for those that are, because it is stigmatized and it's something like, oh, we don't want to talk about. And so by shying away from it, this is life or death. And so it's important for us to be able to have those conversations, and for adults for us to be able to provide the space for youth to be able to be vulnerable and come to us if that is something that they're experiencing, because that is also a very scary feeling to have if you have thoughts, of ending your life. So you can be less direct with it, more direct, and then important to ask the question and being as direct as possible, that they know that you're talking about suicide, not just being down. And then listen. All the validation and strategies we talked about before, not interrupting the nonverbals. We don't condemn the idea of suicide. We're validating that, understand that they are feeling these emotions and these feelings, and this is what's it resulting in for them. And then, being able to support them. So whether it's a counselor, what resources are they? Can you go with them to take them to get help, but really knowing, letting them know that you're there to support them and that you're not going to like leave them or treat them differently or abandon them in their time of need. So what supports can you do? This is Suicide Awareness Month in September, so it's a good time to be able to be talking about this. So there's 988, the Suicide and Crisis line that you can text, call, text, and there are people that are trained for both youth and adults to be able to assist in any kind of crisis. It doesn't have to be suicide or any kind of mental health challenge. There's also other crisis lines that are available that you'll see in the resources that I provide. So I just want to put those out there for you all. There's also virtual resources that you can have just for mental health and having a toolkit virtually. I know a lot of youth are on their phone, so there's some virtual apps that are available that are really amazing. I just wanted to highlight Find Your Anchor. I'm having the youth that I work with build these boxes that are to show support for youth. You can have for yourself as well, leave them for someone else, for someone that's feeling down, depressed, having thoughts of suicide. And this is a way of being able to connect them to resources and know that there are others around that care about them. Two more things I want to show here is, so I have a youth coalition that I direct, and we also have a resource guide that's 6 pages long. It also includes free resources and therapy in Indiana. So I just put the link there. I can also, Josh, give you that PDF. I know there's probably other resources too, the IYI, but I just wanted to share that we consolidate each year and try to have a pretty comprehensive list for youth. And then lastly here, I wanted to talk about CAMs. So if there is someone that you are working with and that they are having thoughts of suicide, there is a very effective program that's available outpatient through Riley. And so you can refer youth 10 to 18 that are having active suicidal ideation, and they will be able to assist you, review the referral within 72 hours and get them connected to a mental health provider through Riley. Just trainings, I just want to just mention really quickly, there's QPR, and there's a ton of ways of getting QPR for free. That's a suicide prevention training that's available, as well as youth mental health first aid. And there are ways of getting that training free as well here in Indiana, so I can connect you with that if that's something anyone is interested in. So I know I had to breeze through those last slides quickly. Apologies there and with the technical difficulties at the beginning, but I really wanted to be able to focus on the DBT strategies and principles, go through those approaches of being able to communicate and talk to people, youth that might be experiencing suicidal thoughts or behaviors, as well as identify some additional resources that you can use. So again, apologies for having to speed up at the end there, but please reach out to me if you have any questions. I have like safety plans and things that are free. I just put them on my website for people to be able to use. But again, I can also send those to Josh if you just want to send those out within a PDF. But yes, thank you all so much for joining, and apologies for going now 1 minute over.
That's okay. So we are at time, so we don't have enough time for questions. We do have one from Megan. Dr. Zapolsky, I will send that to you. And if you can maybe type up a response, I can include it with the PowerPoint slides this afternoon. And so with that, we are going to close out today. Thank you, Dr. Zapolsky, for the incredibly helpful presentation. There was a lot of information there, and so we're just grateful for your time. A few things. The first is that we have our Kids Count conference coming up. It's a two-day experience dedicated to your work in supporting the well-being of children in Indiana. Our keynote is Max Greenfield from New Girl, which is really cool. But also really cool is Dr. Zapolsky will be doing a few sessions over the 2 days, so something to look forward to there. In addition to Kids Count, we have a couple of webinars coming up. Tomorrow we have the human side of trauma-informed workplaces. And so that is a webinar. It's from noon to 1 Eastern time. And then on the 23rd, we have a college and career webinar, What Youth Serving Leaders Should Know About Certification Programs, which is also really important information. Finally, you can receive the latest updates and opportunities by signing up for our newsletter, IYI.org/newsletters. With that, I would like to conclude by thanking all of our attendees for being here with us today. We don't take lightly that we are given an hour of your time. This afternoon, you'll receive an email that includes a copy of the presentation and a link to complete the evaluation of the webinar. Please take a few minutes to let us know what you thought about today's presentation. And when you fill that out, at the end, you'll be redirected to your certificate of completion. If you don't receive that evaluation email, please check your junk mail. So with that, that concludes our presentation. And so one more time, thank you so much for showing up today and every day for Indiana's youth.